I've been doing this for 11 years. Antique appraisals, estate consultations, auction prep. My office is on the second floor of a building on Newbury Street in Boston, the kind of street where old money goes to feel validated. I've held items worth more than most people's houses. I don't get attached, and I don't get spooked. I want that on the record before I tell you what happened. She came in on a Thursday afternoon in late October. No appointment. The receptionist almost turned her away, but something about the woman made her call me down anyway. She was maybe 60, well-dressed, and she was holding a box the way you hold something you want to drop. She set it on my desk before she even sat down. "I need a valuation," she said. "Today, if possible." Inside the box, packed in acid-free tissue, was a bisque porcelain doll, late 1800s, French manufacture, probably Jumeau based on the head stamp, brown glass eyes, human hair wig, original silk dress, cream with pale blue ribbon, fragile but intact, roughly 16 inches, the kind of piece serious collectors lose sleep over. I told her what I told everyone. I'd need a few days to research provenance, cross-reference recent auction results, verify the markings. "How much for a rough estimate right now?" she asked. I looked at it again. Rough, somewhere between $4,000 and $7,000. Could go higher with documentation. She nodded slowly. "I'll take 3. I've heard that before. People in probate, people in debt, people just tired of dealing with an estate. But something in her voice wasn't financial. It was the voice of someone clearing out after a flood. Just get it gone. I told her I'd be in touch. She left her number and walked out faster than she came in. I started the provenance research the next morning. The doll had a paper trail, which is unusual and good. Auction records, a few private sale receipts. What I found wasn't good. 6 transactions in 5 years. 2019 sold at Skinner Auctions in Marlborough for $5,400. 2020 resold privately for $3,800. 2021 appeared at a small consignment house in Providence, sold for $2,200. 2022 private sale, $1,500. 2023 eBay listed for $900, sold to a buyer in Portland, Maine. Early 2024, the woman in my office acquired it. I don't know what she paid. Every single owner sold it below what they bought it for, not because the market dropped, because every single one of them wanted out fast. I called the Skinner contact who handled the 2019 sale. She remembered it. "Estate piece," she said. "Family couldn't get rid of it fast enough. We thought it was a motivated seller situation." She paused. "Is something wrong with it?" "I was just doing research," I told her. She said okay and was quiet for a second before adding, "I remember one of the family members said something odd when they dropped it off, said they didn't want it in the house anymore because their kid kept talking to it at night." She laughed a little, like she was embarrassed to have repeated it. Kids, you know. I thanked her and hung up. I found the Providence consignment house listing online. The description was professional, but the last line was strange. "Seller motivated, price firm, will not negotiate upward." That's not how sellers talk. I couldn't reach the Portland buyer. Their eBay account had been deactivated. I kept the doll over the weekend to finish documentation. Standard practice. I have a back room with proper storage, climate-controlled, lock on the door. I put it on the shelf in there Friday evening and didn't think about it again. Saturday morning, I came in early to catch up on paperwork. I walked into the storage room to grab a file. The doll was on my desk. I stood in the doorway for a long time. I live alone. The building has a security system. I'm the only one with the key to that room. I checked the log. No entries, no exits, no motion alerts triggered in the main office. I told myself I'd moved it without thinking, that I'd carried it out while reviewing the documentation Thursday and forgot. It's a reasonable explanation. I've been tired. I've had a lot of cases. I put it back in the storage room, closed the door, checked the lock twice. Sunday, I didn't go in. Monday morning, the doll was on my desk. The woman called me Monday afternoon to follow up. I told her my assessment stood. The doll was worth between $4,000 and $7,000, and I had a buyer who would likely pay closer to the high end, a collector in Connecticut I've worked with for years, careful and serious. She was quiet for a moment. "Do you want to just take it? Keep it, sell it, whatever you need to do. I don't need the money." I said that wasn't how I operated. She said okay and gave me permission to proceed with the Connecticut buyer. I hung up the phone and looked at the storage room door. Then I picked up the phone again, not to call Connecticut. I called a colleague in Philadelphia, a woman who runs a small shop near Rittenhouse Square. I've sent her low-priority pieces before when my plate was full. "I've got a bisque Jumeau," I told her. "Good condition, full provenance. I'll send it to you at $800. I just need it moved." She asked why so cheap. I didn't have an answer. I still don't. She's picking it up Thursday. I don't know why I want it gone. I've been trying to figure that out for 3 days now, and every time I sit down to think about it clearly, I find myself in the storage room doorway, just staring at the shelf, and I can't remember how long I've been standing there. I think I need it out of my office. I think I needed it out of my office a long time ago.
I moved to Austin in early September. New job, new city, fresh start. I'd been in Cincinnati for 6 years, and when the offer came through, I didn't hesitate. I found a one-bedroom on South Congress Avenue, signed the lease over email, and drove down with everything I owned packed into a rented cargo trailer. The building is a newer complex, 3 floors, maybe 40 units. Clean, nothing special. My apartment is on the 2nd floor facing the parking lot. I moved in on a Saturday morning, made 4 trips up and down the stairs, and by noon had everything stacked against the walls. I ordered pizza from a place on South 1st Street and ate on the floor surrounded by boxes. I'd labeled everything myself in black marker, block capitals, neat. Kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, books. Around 7 that evening, I pulled a box from the bottom of the stack near the front door. Medium-sized, sealed with brown packing tape, heavier than I expected. The label was written in blue ink, slightly uneven, letters leaning left. It just said, "Bedroom," in lowercase. I assumed I'd grabbed someone else's box by mistake during the chaos of loading the trailer back in Cincinnati. I cut the tape and opened it. Inside, wrapped in a white bedsheet, was a porcelain doll. I set it on the floor, about 16 inches tall, dark hair pulled back, pale yellow dress with a white collar. The eyes were the open and close type. Upright, they were open, looking straight ahead. Nothing else in the box, except a folded piece of paper at the bottom that I almost missed. I unfolded it. It was a photograph, printed on copy paper, slightly grainy, black and white. It showed the interior of an apartment, living room, kitchen counter in the background, a window on the far wall with horizontal blinds half open. I looked up at my window. Same blinds, same angle, same kitchen counter behind me. My apartment, empty, photographed from inside before I moved a single thing through the door. I turned the paper over. On the back, in the same left-leaning blue ink, was a date, September 2nd, 8 days before I signed my lease, 11 days before I arrived. I sat on the floor for a long time. Then I started constructing explanations, the way you do when something makes no sense. The complex photographs units between tenants,
A previous resident stored belongings and left them behind. The building manager keeps documentation records, and something got mixed up. I ran through 6 versions of this, each one less convincing than the last. The next morning, I brought the box and the doll to the leasing office. I explained where I'd found them and asked if the complex photographed apartments between tenants. The woman at the front desk said they did a standard walkthrough inspection, but didn't photograph interiors as a rule. I showed her the printed photo. She studied it and said it looked like it could be a unit in the building, but she couldn't say which one. She said she didn't recognize the doll or the box. I left both in the lost and found shelf. I kept the photograph. That night, I searched my address on real estate listing sites, thinking maybe the photo had been taken for a prior rental listing and stored by a previous tenant. My unit had last been listed in March of the previous year. The listing photos were color, wide angle, professionally shot, nothing like the flat gray image I was holding. I emailed the building manager and asked for the move-out records for my unit. She replied the following morning. The previous tenant had vacated in late July. I asked whether they had left any belongings behind. She said the unit had been inspected and fully cleared before my move-in date. That was 5 weeks ago. Nothing strange has happened since. No sounds, no movements, nothing I could point to as unexplainable. The doll is still in the leasing office as far as I know. I haven't checked. But 2 nights ago, I was reorganizing my closet and found the white bedsheet mixed in with my own linens. I had set it aside without thinking during the unpack and forgotten about it. I held it up and noticed something I hadn't seen the first time. In the center of the sheet, roughly where the doll's face would have rested, there was a faint stain, the kind left when something damp presses against fabric and stays there for a long time. The shape was the size and outline of a face, pressed from the inside. I put the sheet in a bag, tied it, and took it to the dumpster behind the parking lot. I didn't bring it back inside. I still have the photograph. I've thought about throwing it away a dozen times. Every time I pick it up, I turn it over and look at that date on the back, September 2nd, and I get the same feeling I can't shake. Whoever took that photo knew I was coming before I knew it myself. My lease runs through next August. I've started looking at the other units in the building when I pass them in the hallway. The closed doors, the ones with shoes outside, the one on the 3rd floor that's been dark every time I've walked by. Wondering if any of them found a box that wasn't theirs. Wondering if any of them kept the photograph. The lost and found shelf in the leasing office has a small window facing the parking lot. Every morning when I leave for work, I tell myself not to look. Most mornings I don't. This morning I did. The shelf was empty. The doll was gone. I want to be clear about something before I start. I'm not a superstitious person. I grew up in a small town in western Kentucky, went to college at the University of Louisville, and have spent the last 11 years working in logistics management. I think in spreadsheets. I troubleshoot problems. I don't spook easily. I'm telling you this because what I'm about to write is going to sound like I spook easily. My wife and I drove down to New Orleans in October for our anniversary. We do a trip every year, nothing fancy, just a long weekend somewhere we haven't been. She booked an Airbnb in the French Quarter, a 2nd-floor apartment on St. Anne's Street, about a half block from Jackson Square. The listing had over 200 5-star reviews. The photos looked great. High ceilings, exposed brick, those old wooden shutters that open out onto the street. Exactly what you'd want for a weekend in that neighborhood. We got there on a Friday evening around 7. The host had left a lockbox code and a handwritten welcome note on the kitchen counter with restaurant recommendations. Everything looked exactly like the photos. We dropped our bags, cleaned up, and went out for dinner on Frenchman Street. Had a great night. Came back around midnight, poured 2 glasses of wine, and went to bed. I woke up at 2 a.m. for no reason I could identify. No sound, no dream I could remember, nothing. I just opened my eyes and was completely awake, which almost never happens to me. The closet door across from the bed was open about 4 inches. My wife had closed it before we went to sleep. I remembered because she mentioned the closet had a slight mildew smell and she didn't want it drifting into the room overnight. I watched her push it shut. I got up and opened it all the way to look inside. Mostly empty. A few wire hangers, an extra blanket on the top shelf, a cardboard box pushed into the back corner. And on the floor of the closet, propped upright against the back wall, was a porcelain doll. It was maybe 14 inches tall, dark hair, a white dress with small blue flowers, eyes that were painted open, old-looking but not damaged. It had clearly been placed there intentionally. It was sitting upright, back straight, facing outward. I stood there for a moment, then I closed the closet door and went back to bed. I told myself the host had forgotten it was in there. Old houses have old things in them. I've stayed in probably 60 Airbnbs over the years and found all kinds of things previous guests or owners had left behind. I talked myself down in about 3 minutes and went back to sleep. In the morning, I mentioned it to my wife. She gave me a look and went to open the closet. The doll was gone. The closet was exactly as it had been when we arrived. Hangers, blanket, cardboard box, nothing on the floor. We both stood there for a moment without saying anything. My wife is more practical than I am. She said maybe I dreamed it and assumed I had actually gotten up. I'm a light sleeper and she's a heavy one, so it was plausible she hadn't heard me get up if it had been a dream. I almost agreed with her, except I clearly remembered the texture of the closet door under my hand when I pushed it open, the slight resistance of the hinges, the smell of mildew when the door swung wide. Those are not the kinds of details that show up in dreams. I checked the Airbnb listing again on my phone. The host had installed a small indoor security camera mounted near the front door, standard practice disclosed in the listing, pointed toward the entryway and part of the main room, not the bedroom. I messaged the host through the app and asked if the camera recorded overnight and if there was any way to review the footage from the previous night. I was polite about it, said I might have sleptwalked and just wanted to confirm I hadn't done anything embarrassing. The host, a woman whose profile listed her as based in Metairie, responded within the hour. She said the camera records continuously to a cloud backup, but when she checked the footage from the previous night, it showed nothing unusual until approximately 2:08 a.m., at which point the recording cut out entirely. It came back online at 6:44 a.m. No explanation for the gap. She said it had never done that before. She apologized and offered us a partial refund for the inconvenience. I asked her about the doll. There was a long pause, probably 20 minutes before she responded. She said there was no doll in the unit. She said she had owned and managed the property for 6 years and had never had a doll in that closet or anywhere else in the apartment. She said she would have our full weekend comped, and she hoped we enjoyed the rest of our stay. We checked out that afternoon instead of Sunday. told ourselves it was because my wife had a headache from the heat, which was partially true. On the drive back up through Mississippi on I-55, my wife was quiet for a long time. Somewhere around the Brookhaven exit, she said, without looking up from her phone, "I saw it too. I just didn't want to say anything." I asked her what she meant. She said when she woke up in the middle of the night, she thought it was around 2. She saw me standing at the open closet door. She said she watched me for a minute, assumed I was half asleep, and closed her eyes again. She said just before she fell back asleep, she heard me close the closet. But here's the thing. She said I was just standing there, still, for the entire minute she watched me. She said I never moved, never reached for the door, never opened it wider or tried to look inside. She said the closet was already open when I walked up to it, and she said there was something standing just behind me the entire time, something small that she assumed was a shadow. I haven't contacted the host again. I haven't left a review. I don't know what I would write. We got home to Louisville on Sunday night, and I haven't thought about much else since.